Hello everyone, today we are taking a look at EMAX's initial launch into the CineWhoop category, or CineWhoop category, excuse my lack of E there, but it's the CineHawk, and it is running 3.5-inch props, and it's got two separate prop guards, as you can see right here, and the thing that I think good many people want in their CineWhoops is the DJI O3, which of course this does have. Of course, you see mine's got a lot of dirt on it, and that's because, well, I don't just fly them slow and smooth. I like to fly them fast and more aggressive and kind of freestyle-ish, at least kind of freestyle-ish like I do on this channel. So we'll get to look at various flight footage as we go along. Let's start out with a quick hit on the specs. As I mentioned already, we've got the DJI O3 air unit with its camera. Of course, that has RockSteady, or as I might refer to it as EIS, electronic image stabilization. And what they've done different here is they've got this platform up top. Kind of harkens back to those of you that have been around a number of years. We used to see this on a lot of our larger quads, to where we did, well, quads didn't fly so well back then, so when we had an external HD camera we were trying to record, we would have these platforms just like this or similar to this, and they would be on these little gummies. Of course, times have changed quite a bit. So they have a platform up here. There's a quick note about accessing everything within this little cage in this platform, and we'll get to that after the flights. Of course, we've got these to secure those gummies down so those don't have to fly off. We used to have to use dental floss or thread or what have you. Got an all-in-one flight controller. I suspect that is the same flight controller they've been using in several of their launches here over the last year or so. Of course, I don't exactly know what it is. The material I have doesn't state it. And it's launch day, so as I record this video, I don't even have access to the website. It's got the EMAX Eco motors. They are 2004, and the KV is not even written on here. So again, I don't exactly know what KV it is, but the version I have, if they have more than one version, is the 4S version. Got the EMAX Avon 3.5-inch props. This platform here seems to be just to get those props up off the ground, but I do take off from within the grass. You'll get to see that as well. The battery connection is the XT30, and it does have a 35 volt, 470 microfarad capacitor here on the battery lead. So it comes in two different versions, Express LRS as well as DJI O3 air unit, which I don't have the remote that works with that. I have the older black DJI remote. So unfortunately, I received mine and it came wired up for S-Bus. So I had to step back to use FR Sky and S-Bus. But thankfully, you won't have to suffer from that because you can use Express LRS. It should come already installed. It weighs 236 and about 1/4 grams. The recommended battery is an 850 milliamp 4S battery, and that's what I use to fly it. And with that battery, it comes in at 332, almost 333 grams. They do have optional 3D printed parts that would assemble up here if you wanted to run an external HD camera. Those weren't sit with my unit for review, so I can't really show you that. The main carbon fiber plate looks to be 3mm thick, with the carbon fiber that houses the DJI O3 air unit as well as the camera coming in at 1.5mm thick. And motor post to motor post looks like I'm getting 149mm, just about 150 on the nose. The antenna it came with is the original DJI antenna, so you don't have to worry about any sort of aftermarket antenna. It did come with two extra props. It came with two replacement gummies for our VTX/camera platform. Comes with various extra screws, nuts, zip ties, and a couple little washers. You also get this propeller warning. Please check your propeller orientation before flight. And if you don't know, the high side of your prop, that leads the rotation. That's how it generates thrust. A please fix the antenna card, a precautions and disclaimer card from EMAX, support manuals, and a tiny sheet of stickers. Gonna start off with the slow flight here as we take off. A little excess noise from the props there. And that's something else that EMAX is thinking with these props turned, well, not necessarily upside down, but the props oriented the way they are down, that they're less noisy. And I don't know that to be the case. It's hard for me to remember sound from one quad to the next, so if you have that question about which one's quieter, whatever you want to compare it to, I'm very consistent on the channel about making sure I have flight audio using the same camera for quite a while now. I think it's been about 4 years with the same flight audio camera. It has given me fits from time to time. You're welcome to look on the channel if I have reviewed the quad you want to compare it to, and then listen to both. Maybe two different tabs open on your browser or two different computers possibly, and just listen to both flights at the same time. Of course, I do narrate, so my voice is going to impede you a little bit. This one, I think you're going to find with this one that you're going to want to make sure that you do have the electronic image stabilization, or as DJI calls it, RockSteady, turned on. It does smooth out the video a fair bit. I don't think if you fly it faster or more aggressive, you're going to want to fly it or have that RockSteady on. I had some troubles trying to fly it aggressively with RockSteady or EIS on. It's just, it feels a little bit disconnected from the quad. But for the purposes of getting stable footage, we've got that platform, we've got RockSteady or EIS built into the O3 unit. And that seems to have pretty dang good smooth results. Of course, you can always compare that for yourself because I've got the flight footage right here to prove it. This is the onboard video, by the way. This is not the in-goggle view. You'll get to see the in-goggle view shortly as we get through some of the flight footage. Got a stick up there on the cabana roof. Didn't know that was up there. I didn't even notice it was flying. But in this flight, my props are fresh. I haven't crashed it much yet. At least I don't recall crashing it slow really at all. But you'll notice when we get into the faster flight that the prop is maybe sounding a little bit off. Because yeah, I actually am going to show a crash in my primary faster flight footage. So again, I am flying this on the 850 milliamp 4S battery. That is recommended. It is tuned for. You could probably get away with up to 11 or 1200, maybe even a 1500 milliamp 4S battery. I did fly it on a 1300 milliamp 4S battery, and I flew it very, very slowly, and I got about 2 minutes and 20 seconds more flight time. But I only did that once, so it's not an average. That's just comparing my average on the 850 versus the flight time that I got on that 1300. And the 1300 I was flying it on is not new by any stretch. It's got to be 5, 6 plus years old. It's one of the batteries I bought way back when I thought I might actually be interested in flying and reviewing 5-inch quads. It's mainly been a goggle battery for the last few years, so probably discharged too low a few times, probably kept charged too long a few times. So my flight time, I think, would be a minimum for what you'd get on a 1300 milliamp 4S battery. And if you missed it, flight time at the beginning of this flight, it's right there on screen. I'll go ahead and tell you now, 5 minutes and 15 seconds. So this is an early morning flight, about as calm as we get this time of year. It's really rare we get anything below, let's say, 9 miles per hour. Oftentimes we'll say single digits when it gets down to 9, because it's really the type of wind that you barely feel, if you feel it at all. So this is in very good calm conditions. This is our flight with the RockSteady or EIS turned off. So this actually shows you how stable the quad is. Of course, we have a little bit of, we have that platform which can actually make it seem less stable than it really is depending upon the wind. You know, that it's going to kind of soften the harder micro vibrations in order to give you the clearest picture. But I think in some instances that if you had a whole lot of wind or you're making abrupt movements, it could actually increase the size of the less than stable image. So if you're flying it aggressively, you may find that, well, you'll get to see it in my flight footage, but I wanted to give you an idea of what this quad looks like when you turn off the image stabilization, because that is something that over the years with CineWhoops, I've had several people ask me about that. So I thought at least having a minute or so of flight footage with the EIS turned off. Same day, you'll notice the sun very low still. I will be wearing the same jacket as it's fairly chilly. I believe this is just prior to 8 a.m. Before I'm getting ready to head off for work. But this flight might have been right at 8 a.m. You know, if I'm a little late, I'm okay. You know, I don't have to punch into a clock. I'm just most to make sure I'm doing the job. But I wanted to show you this. Again, this was no RockSteady, no EIS on this. This is just raw out of the camera. Again, VTX footage, not recorded to SD card, recorded straight to the VTX. And this is going to be our faster flight. This is also our goggle view. So this is how it looks through the goggles. This is the image transmission in my space from this quad to the Goggles 2, which I've commented about the fitment. And someone said, oh, just go back and get V2 goggles. Well, you know, it would be great if I could just go get V2 goggles. My original goggles, the ones that look like Ant-Man, they're V1s. So I couldn't use that with the O3. So getting V2 goggles, while a good value, seems to be kind of tough to do, because I think most people are holding on to them, or if they are selling them, they already sold them. But this is my faster flight. If you're not familiar with what I like to do on the channel, I kind of like to fly more aggressively by nature, and so as I started reviewing CineWhoops, I'm actually flying them faster as well, and we are going to have a crash coming up in this flight. There it is, yeah. Over-rotated and smoked it right into the ground. Not terrible, but we're going to turtle mode it, and then we're going to take off. I would not probably, I don't know, I'm pretty cautious. If it were, you know, summer, spring, and the grass were to be nice and thick and hardy, I probably wouldn't have turtle moded out of there, because again, that was, I might have turtle mode, but I don't think taking off is a really good idea. One, it beats up your props if you've got any sticks or anything. Of course, if you're stuck, if you don't know where you're at, all those different situations where you just have to make a sacrifice in order to get your quad back, yeah, you're going to take off. But, you know, this is walking distance from me. So if the grass had been much more hardy and it would have been springtime, I probably wouldn't have taken off from that grass, because we do have I don't want to say downward facing props. They're just lower to the ground than our traditional quads. Thankfully, it was sitting nice and flat, and the grass is dormant, so it's pretty brittle, and I was able to take back off, so I got to show you at least that crash. There is a vase that got moved. My wife, actually, shortly before this flight, was out doing some flower potting and whatnot, and a pot got moved right into my flight path. I barely missed it during this flight. In another flight, I did not miss it. I clipped it and then ended up going down for another crash. And I do believe, if I recall correctly, that crash came on the cement. So a little bit of a durability test. Probably not as many crashes as you might have over the course of a lifetime of yours. But in the case of me and being able to fly it, and fly it faster and have more aggressive sort of crashing, yeah, I had a couple, and I will show you those back at the desk within a picture-in-picture. You can see here at about 225, we're getting battery warnings from time to time. I did leave that at the default. I think with my particular battery, it's sagging a little bit, probably due to those 2004 motors and the fact that that battery is well used. I probably could have lowered that warning to kind of alleviate that annoyance, because you'll find here at the end of the flight that we come in and the battery voltage comes back up to 3.65, I think it was 3.65 volts per cell. So actually have a little bit more flight time, a little bit more wiggle room there with the end of our flight. But I'm flying it fairly aggressively, and a little bit of a surprising thing is, yeah, it's not a short flight for something this size, running a relatively small battery for a 3.5-inch prop. Here we're going to come in to land. You can see our battery is already recovering. We do get 3 minutes and 12 seconds of flight time in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. Battery average is already up to 3.65 volts. I think the most important thing to cover while we're here at the desk is the accessibility of your USB port and your SD card. Now, I didn't have any troubles with the SD card, but obviously it's laying almost flat, so you're going to need to use something like tweezers or something once you've got it ejected to get it out of there. You know, it's not something I could natively do with my fingers. But getting the USB-C port connected so that you can activate, so you can update that, or get the footage off of the O3 air unit, that I was not able to do. And you can see how close it is right down there. Hopefully you can see how close it is down there. You know, your USB-C connector, the cable is going to have some, you know, bulk around the end. So what I found was taking about 3 turns on each one of the O3 air unit screws to loosen that up, dropped it down just enough to where I was able to plug that in each and every time. And then, of course, I had to remember to tighten it back up, of course, as well. If we take a look at the frame, they've done a fair bit of cutting out of the what you might consider the solid portions of the frame. I can't say that's for weight loss, but something that I found was interesting on how they cut out these little recess areas where we've got some screws. They kind of did it all over. They didn't do it on this top plate, but we can see it on all the motors. We can see it here down the center, how they cut out kind of that top 2 millimeters of carbon. It's not flat completely. The screw heads still stick up just a touch up there. Also, while we're here, we've got zip ties on our motor wires to make sure that they don't get down into the prop. That's always a good thing. EMAX, good job. But like most companies, we don't have any sort of battery lead protection to make sure that the battery, if it were to get ejected, which I know in this case we're going forward, we'd be hitting this air unit housing up here, so not very likely. But say you're flying backwards and you hit whoop, and the battery comes off this battery mat, which is rubberized but not texturized. It's smooth. If you had a battery ejection, pulling on your battery lead directly from the ESC pads on this thing, that can be a sad thing. So what I suggest, as in most of our quads when they don't have that, is to get yourself a little bit of slack space, and then zip tie it to an arm or this back plate, whatever works out best for you. Not back plate, top plate here. But your battery's going to sit here, so you might want to do it over here. Got a little bit of debris still stuck on this little guy. Of course, with me using the FR Sky receiver, it's an RXSR, or no, it's an XM Plus. I had these two receivers. There's really nowhere to put antennas to mount them on this quad. At least they didn't come with any printed accessory that kind of says, oh, put the antennas here. So what I did was I just kind of ran it out the back, and then I ran it out between the motor wires over here to try to keep the antenna ends out of the props and harm's way. I suppose with an Express LRS, you could bring them out here and you could zip tie it to this area with a T-style antenna. Of course, if you're using a Express LRS receiver that does not have a longish T-style antenna coming out of it, you're probably using one of those super micro antennas. That's not going to get you as great a range, but you could stick it to an arm. I've done that several times. It kind of leaves it exposed, but if you put it kind of in this area, hopefully because the battery would be there, the likelihood that you would crash and hit something on that small little micro receiver over there would be relatively minimal. Of course, I did mention how I got about 2.25 minutes more when I threw it on the fluid, on the 1300 milliamp. I hope that the boxes ship with an extra battery strap, and EMAX does ship now an appropriately sized battery strap. In the past, I've gotten some really long EMAX battery straps on quads where they recommend an 850 milliamp 4S battery, and it's just crazy long. This is much more appropriate, and it does have like a silicone lining to it as well. But hopefully they have two, so if you want to cruise a lot longer and you want to use that 13 or 1500 milliamp 4S battery, which it should be fine. I flew it on it. I didn't find any real problems. Two battery straps might be necessary. I want to draw your attention to this cutout over here. That's, they may have done that cutout and then kind of enhanced the rest of these cutouts because the need to run the wiring to the O3 air unit through here. But it's nice and tidy. I have an appreciation for that. The 3D printed antenna, they talk about it in that little card that I showed you in the quick specs as I stumble over my tongue here. When you get it shipped, this antenna won't be in this slot. It'll be kind of laying down because the box isn't very tall, so you just need to slide it into this slot. This antenna piece will already be mounted there, at least it was in my case, as well as everything else here. If we look down at the bottom, you can see how the DJI 3 camera cable is kind of that nylon braided stuff, and they've got it tucked up in there, so it's all nice and secured away. These are 3D printed pieces here, so if you go sliding over time, they will wear down. This actually, it surprised me after I got my receiver in here and I needed to put this piece back on here, how much struggle this all gave me. What I ended up doing, because I took it off again and I thought there's something I'm doing wrong here. Of course, they've got all sorts of cutouts in this too, so that's a little bit curious. And this particular quad, maybe they had other plans for, maybe they've got an HD0 unit coming or a walk-snail unit coming, and maybe this will be of use, or maybe they're going to use a 20x20 stack in here. I don't know, but we got a lot here for holes that we're not currently using, at least in this particular version. So I ended up getting all the screws started in the metal standoffs. They are metal standoffs. So I got all 4 screws started with a few turns, and then I just kind of worked around like you would with a tire when you're putting the tire back on, or wheel, whatever you want to call that. I would just go a couple more turns on all these as I just kind of hunkered this down to that base plate. And it is real firm once you get it on there. It's just, it seems as though the measurements may have been a little greater than the top plate, but I can't envision that because that's such a basic engineering thing. I can't see somebody would get that wrong. But at first I thought it was awful hard to get that last post in when I was doing that. But that's all kind of an aside. It's a minor thing. You probably won't have to be in there at all because, again, this does come with the O3 air unit, which you can use the gray FPV remote from DJI on. They will also have an Express LRS version available on their website. Speaking of the website, I have no idea what the price is. I can't tell you anything about that, unfortunately. Being that it's got an O3 air unit in it, and it's a 3.5-inch quad from EMAX. Let's play it. Let's have a little fun. Before you go looking and clicking that link down the video description, how much do you think this costs? What do you think? Just the quad with the receiver. Let's say Express LRS version or the plug and play version with the DJI 03 air unit and the associated remote. How much do you think this costs? I'm curious. Go ahead. Yeah, you can write yours in the comment, your guess if you'd like to, or you can edit your comment from already in the video. I'm going to say, and this is going to seem like cheating because you probably think I know, but I actually don't know. I'm going to expect this to come in around $340. That's what I think. Seems high, but I'm worried if I go too low that I'll really disappoint myself. I guess in Price is Right terms, you're better to be lower than you are high. So if you are interested in the CineHawk, I'll have links down in the video description down below. It's probably going to be available from several stores. Race Day Quads, Pyro Drone, our friends over in Europe. If you know of a store that's selling the CineHawk, please let me know. I'll include it down in the video description. Doesn't matter if it's an affiliate link or not. I put links to all the different shops that I can find it on. I do a quick Google search, hit the shopping tab, and I just pull all the shops that I can find. AliExpress will have a bunch, so I'll just pick one to have that down there. Whether it's an affiliate thing or not, that doesn't matter to me. I just want to make it there and make them all convenient. You purchase your FPV products from wherever you would like to purchase your FPV products. I bet you Amazon won't have this, at least not today on launch day. It'll probably have it down the line. But tell me what you think of EMAX's first attempt. What do you think how smooth it is? What do you think of the punch-outs? Because I kind of thought the punch-outs from a 3.5-inch prop with 2004 motors on it, I expected a little bit more on that punch-out over the house, or the straight one up above the chimney. I kind of thought it would have a little bit more oomph. But that's not really what it's designed for. I think I'm asking for a lot when I'm asking for a CineWhoop that can freestyle as well, right? I know, it's ridiculous. If you do have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, or thoughts on the CineHawk from EMAX, please let me know down in the comments section below. I appreciate your time. Thanks for watching.